The following video is based upon true crime content. Therefore, it may contain images and/or language that some find disturbing. For this reason, viewer discretion is advised. Well, hello, my friends. The time has come for me to discuss a topic that you've all enjoyed over the past year so much on my channel, and I've been really quiet about her. I've got my mouth shut, but we now know where she's at, and we're going to talk about it because the place that Sarah Boone has now been transferred to for her lifelong home, I guess it's going to be her lifelong home, is pretty bad. She is now in Lowell Correctional Institute. It's in Ocala, Florida. Ocala, Florida is North Florida. It's kind of, I drove through Ocala quite often, whenever I'd take road trips or whatever in and out of Florida when I lived there. And it's very rural. It's probably not a bad place to have property. There's not a lot going on up there. A lot of horse farms, things like that, country, that kind of thing. So anyway, that's the surrounding area, but let's talk more closely about the prison. It sits on 315 acres of land, multiple buildings. There's an annex. There's the main facility. There's a work camp. There's a couple of housing units also. It says the population includes adult women and youthful inmates. It also houses pregnant prisoners, prisoners who use wheelchairs, deaf prisoners, and prisoners with other disabilities. The facility holds all custody levels to include community, minimum, medium, close, and maximum. The number of staff in the entire Lowell campus who have contact with the prisoners is 595 staff members. That's a lot. It was built in 1956. Okay, it's 74 buildings. Oh, you guys, that is a lot. That's a lot. That is a huge facility. I wonder how many people it takes to, if it's 595 staff and they're still understaffed. Can you imagine? 74 buildings, 27 are designated for prisoner housing. 14 housing units, 12 are open bay dormitories, and 2 are celled housing. I hope Sarah's celled. Do y'all think she's in a cell? See, I would think that the people that get the dormitories are the underage people, the underage kids, the women that are pregnant or have disabilities or something like that. And then somebody like Sarah, who's a lifer, she's got to have her own. I mean, I just can't see them treating a lifer with giving them better treatment than they would someone else. But that's just my opinion. I don't know. You never know. Anyway, there's a chapel. They have 10 classrooms, 2 dining halls, and 1 visitation park. The annex has 8 housing units, 5 are open bay dorms, and 3 are celled housing, and one of the 3 having 6 death row cells that are single celled. I think right now there's only that I know of. There's only like 2 on death row. The Lowell Annex houses general population, close management, and prisoners in segregation, as well as death row. So I guess she's probably at Annex. There are a total of 168 cells designated for administrative and disciplinary confinement on the campus. It is the 3rd largest state prison system in the country with an annual budget of $2.4 million. And of course, it is the largest state agency in Florida. FDOC houses approximately 96,000 prisoners. Of these, approximately 6,600 are women in 14 facilities. There's all kinds of stuff out about how horrible this place is. And let me share screen now. This video right here, we have an inmate who was severely injured after a beating at that institute. Happened, this was probably 5 years ago. Let's look at this one. I think this was one that I had watched before. A Miami Herald I-Team investigation into the corruption, SA, and medical neglect at the largest women's prison.
In Lowell Correctional Facility, it's legal prostitution. It's like a brothel. It's like a predator's playground.
There's a lot of hatred in this prison. And it's not the inmates, it's the staff.
Behind the razor wire fences of the nation's largest women's prison, complaints of rampant sexual, physical, and mental abuse are frequently reported by inmates against the very corrections officers put in place to guard them.
The number of times that these same prison guards were reported time and time and time again, and they were just ignored. And when the women would report the prison guards, they would send them to like solitary confinement.
My first time in prison at Lowell, it was pretty corrupt. It was pretty dirty. My second time, it took it to a whole nother level. Sex with officers, harassment with officers, officers pushing up on you, officers touching you. I got to a point to where I was so fed up of having to flirt with officers and play with officers and have sex with officers and do sexual favors for officers just so I could survive in prison. I started to tell.
Crystal Harper says that one of the officials that she reported to a prison investigator was the assistant warden, Marty Martinez.
I had put on a show for him in the dorm, and I did what he wanted me to do. And he told me that he was going to give me $150, and he didn't. So then when I started to tell what had happened, I told her about me with myself for him. I told her about the other girls that were involved with him. I told him about his long talks, how you can get anybody moved. If you were ugly and you needed to talk to the warden about something that was probably serious or something that you needed or whatever, you needed to go find a pretty girl to do it. Don't even come talk to him if you're ugly.
And when they go to solitary confinement, they don't get their necessities. They can't get stuff from the canteen. They can't get their toiletries. They miss any. They can't get phone call privileges. They can't. They lose their visitation privileges. So many times, what will happen is they won't report it just because they know reporting it sends them there. Now the prison was saying, "Well, we send them to this confinement for their own safety." However, what this report suggests is instead of doing that, why wouldn't you take that guard and switch them out with another guard and move them to a different location and keep that guard away from the prisoners? Because that's the person that the allegation is made against, you know?
Harper was moved to Homestead Correctional to finish out her sentence. Assistant Warden Martinez, known to many of the female inmates as Marty and Daddy, was fired amid allegations of misconduct with inmates. When reached by phone and asked about the allegations, Martinez declined to comment. Former inmate Ginger Ullman said the frequent and illegal sexual relationships with officers at Lowell developed mainly as a form of exchange for contraband, like cigarettes, which can be worth over $400 a pack behind bars.
They do you favors, they bring you in things. They'll go home and they'll wire your family money. It's more bringing in things, perfume, lipstick, a pack of cigarettes, and they're laughing their ass off the whole time. Oh, this chick just gave me fellatio for a pack of cigarettes, cost me $3. And then we're in the dorm laughing at him. Oh, all I had to do was 2 minutes. It was disgusting. And then I got $400. But like I said, it's a lose-lose situation for anybody involved in that. And then once you want to stop, you can't. Until he's done with you, you don't stop.
Studies have confirmed high rates of previous victimization among women prisoners and that the women with histories of SA are particularly traumatized by subsequent abuse.
Facing hundreds of serious complaints ranging from abuse, deaths, dorms filled with mold and vermin, and retaliation for reporting abuse, a new warden, Angela Gordon, was brought in to run the prison in March.
Started walking around and meeting the staff and looking at what they were doing and how they were doing it. And I found that just like every other place I've worked, there's a lot of good people here doing a lot of good things. Do we have bad apples? I'm sure we do. Every organization does. But the thing is, myself and my administration here in the department as a whole, we were stressing that that's not something that we're going to tolerate. If we find that a staff is doing something wrong, we're reporting it. We're letting it go through the process, and if it's determined that they are doing something, then we're utilizing the discipline process just as swiftly as we can to take care of that, up to and including termination in some cases.
If you want to believe that, go ahead.
So they said that there's various incidents, various offenders in this. In some instances, they say that the staff demanded that the prisoners undress in front of them, sometimes in exchange for basic necessities such as toilet papers.
I don't live in fantasy land. I wouldn't say that there's only a few bad apples, because the majority of them, the new norm is constant threats. Do you want to eat dirt? You want to get sprayed? And you're an effing this and an effing that and an effing retard, and it goes on and on. And it's not getting any better.
Baron Bergner transferred as a corrections officer from Madison Correctional to Lowell in 2009 and moved up the ranks to become a sergeant in 2012.
Some of the corruption goes on from sex, drugs, money. There was just all kinds of corruption at Lowell. In June, while I was out for surgery, I decided that it was time for myself to leave Lowell because I was tired of seeing all the corruption. I was tired of dealing with it, telling supervisors every day and day and night that there's dirty staff at Lowell and that they're not doing anything about it.
During the course of our investigation, staff, prisoners, and victims advocates told us in chorus that making a report of SA means going to confinement.
A frequent complaint by current and former inmates alike is the lack of proper medical care at the prison. Tanya Yelvington spent 16 years at Lowell for a DUI manslaughter charge, a sentence that she says nearly cost her life due to inadequate medical treatment in prison.
It's just totally inhumane. If you don't have a family member to fight your battles for you, you will die in the Department of Corrections because there is no medical. They do the least as possible. They will go to the lengths of letting you die or misdiagnose you to save the state money. In 2008, I felt a lump in my right breast. I went to medical, and because of my family history of breast cancer, I automatically wanted to have the biopsy. I felt the lump there. I had the lump 14 months before I ever got a biopsy. 14 months, and it went from a pea size to a golf ball size. It went from a 1 centimeter to a 2.5 centimeter, and it left my breast and went to my lymph nodes. He says, depending on treatment, you'll have 3 to 5 years to live. I'm sorry for that, having to tell you that, Ms. Yelvington.
Yelvington had a double mastectomy while serving her time that left her horribly mutilated. She says that while recovering from the surgery, she contracted an infection that nearly killed her. Gordon believes the medical and abuse complaints don't give the full picture of Lowell, and that the rules and structure put in place are important for the inmates and staff alike.
They're here because they broke the rules in the free world. And if they continue to come into the prison system and be allowed to continue to break the rules, they haven't learned anything. So yes, we do have a discipline process. Yes, we enforce the rules.
It's so corrupt and on such a large scale. I don't know if it's fixable.
Okay, well, that was 9 years ago. So there could have been some improvements by now. And there is a new warden. Her name is Shelley Baker. Okay. This story's sad.
A Fox 35 exclusive tonight.
For the first time, we are hearing from the former Florida inmate allegedly beaten by prison guards. Her attorney argues officers broke Cheryl Weimar's neck during a beating nearly 2 years ago at Lowell Correctional Institute in Ocala. Weimar says she's demanding justice.
This is Cheryl Weimar. I got out of prison 2 years ago. They nearly took my life while I was there. I want to know damn well why that then have not made an arrest. God, please do something. I beg you, God.
Weimar did receive millions of dollars from the Florida Department of Corrections in a civil settlement. FDLE says it is still investigating.
Good Lord.
In a rural part of Marion County, this is where most of the state's female prisoners serve out their sentences. But the findings in this 36-page Department of Justice report show for many, the punishment is cruel and unusual. It states the conditions at the Lowell Correctional Institution violate the 8th Amendment of the United States Constitution due to the sexual abuse of prisoners by the facility's staff, accusing the state of Florida, through the Florida Department of Corrections, of failing to keep prisoners at Lowell safe, and noting that despite being on notice of this sexual abuse since at least 2006, the Department of Corrections failed to fix the problems and protect the inmates. Representative Anna Escamani called for changes at Lowell alongside other state leaders outside of the prison a little more than a year ago. after 9 Investigates exposed the alleged beating of inmate Cheryl Weimar inside the facility. According to a federal lawsuit, the woman's injuries were so severe, she's now paralyzed. And 9 Investigates also uncovered how some pregnant prisoners say they felt pressured to give up their babies for adoption after attorneys admitted to offering commissary money to pregnant inmates inside the facility.
Now, I did watch this. I'm not going to go into this story because that's a sad story, but I kind of want to just touch on the different things that have occurred.
This is Florida Department of Corrections video from a recent raid. Using drug dogs and a small army of officers, DOC employees confiscate contraband from inside a prison's walls.
We had several inmates that we found, cell phones, weapons. Those inmates were identified.
They seize drugs worth thousands of dollars and haul inmates away into confinement. How does it get there? Sometimes the schemes are elaborate. One former inmate used a drone to drop cell phones into a prison yard. Reports show about a dozen arrests of people bringing contraband into Florida prisons during inmate visitation.
Senate Criminal Justice 9 to 1130.
Lorette Phillipson, who is now a prison reform advocate, previously served time at Lowell Correctional Institution.
What kinds of things would be smuggled into the prison?
Cigarettes, Suboxone, weed. Those were the things that I was aware of.
They talk about how they catch so many of these things and how they do a great job of stopping contraband. Would you disagree with that?
I would totally disagree with that.
One employee smuggled cigars in his socks. Another used a frozen microwave meal box to bring in 2 hotspots, batteries, and hair clippers. And another prison employee hid drugs wrapped in electrical tape inside her body.
There was one officer, a female officer, who worked the gate. She was bringing in water bottles daily, but they were actually bottles filled with vodka.
Lorette says almost anything was available for a price, including cigarettes, which sold in prison for $5 each.
You would arrange for your family to send a money order, a $100 money order to a P.O. box. And when he got that money order, then he would bring in the pack of cigarettes and then they would be brought to you.
Lorette says inmates and officers having sex wasn't a secret.
Sometimes women got pregnant. Some didn't hide the fact they were in a relationship with the women inside.
More than a dozen arrest reports show inappropriate relationships between officers and inmates. Among the worst, 2 officers from Lowell were arrested last year after their DNA matched samples female inmates saved on pieces of clothing.
That was kind of a generic one, but it did touch on, I did try to pull up the pieces on Lowell. Now, a year ago, this is them with the dog training.
This sound signifies hope for some inmates at Lowell Correctional Institution. Dog training at its core is behavioral modification, but the inmates didn't foresee the modification of their character too.
Something happens that I realize is every time you train a dog, you are actually also training yourself. And it's kind of like a partnership we have going on. You watch them grow and you are also growing at the same time.
Patriot Service Dogs paired with Lowell in 2011 to create this dog training partnership.
We realized pretty quickly that getting out and just having dog training skills doesn't give you much of a leg up once you get out.
Confidence,
Yes.
public speaking, responsibility. A few of the skills dog trainers will take with them after their time at Lowell.
There's a lot of inmates that want to get into the program because it is so beneficial.
Inmates say the program has completely changed their lives.
Can you imagine Sarah Boone going into a program like that? First of all, I'm sure there's a waiting list. You probably just, I bet there's a lot of people that would like to get into that program. And I can imagine Sarah going in there and telling them how they need to, what they need to do to change it and, make things better and whatnot. Now, this video right here is about Second Chance Farm, but it's 11 years ago, so I'm not going to go there. But I did notice that warden, her last name was Pippin. So in these videos we've watched over the last 10 years, we've already got 3 different wardens, if you include the current warden that's in there. This was 5 years ago. So is this the one that hit her?
34-year-old Keith Turner is in the Marion County Jail charged with sexual battery, lewd and lascivious molestation, and exhibition in one case. He's charged with lewd and lascivious molestation in a second one.
It is incredibly disturbing. Last night, we took Keith Turner into custody on 2 different cases, one of which being sexual assault on a juvenile.
The first alleged victim wrote in a letter disclosing what she says happened. She told investigators that sexual abuse started when she was about 6 years old and continued until she was about 16 years old. During the course of the investigation, detectives found out there could be a second juvenile victim. The second alleged victim said Turner had sexually abused her for several years between 2012 and 2016. In both cases, the sheriff's office contacted Keith Turner, who said he had retained an attorney and would not talk without his attorney present. We also asked to interview Turner in jail about the allegations, but he refused our request. Keith Turner is the same prison guard lieutenant at Lowell Correctional Institution in Ocala, who's under investigation by FDLE. Agents are checking into criminal allegations after a female inmate was injured and left paralyzed. Turner is one of 3 guards allegedly involved. For the most recent charges, Keith Turner is in jail on both cases with no bond.
Another one that's 5 years ago.
A Florida prison guard is accused of poisoning an inmate's food with bleach. It happened at Lowell Correctional Institution. Investigators say Kalisha Williams was arguing with an inmate. She then sprayed bleach onto a cup before serving a food tray to that inmate. Investigators say she told the inmate, "I got something for you," and that the tray of food was special.
Sarah better be careful. Like I said, she pisses everybody off, and there's no telling what could happen in some of this. Okay, I think this woman was in Lowell. Let me see.
Thank you. Back to that special I-Team report here tonight and our continuing reporting on the crisis in Florida's correction systems.
Investigative reporter Adam Walser takes a closer look at how a woman is risking solitary confinement for using TikTok videos to report on conditions inside Florida's largest women's prison.
Hey guys, this is Kay coming from Lowell. With good news, the days are dark as black coffee.
Keiko Kopp, a prisoner at Lowell Correctional Institution, always starts her newscast on TikTok describing the day as dark as black coffee.
I want to create awareness. You have no idea what's really going on in here.
Kopp, who goes by Kay, has 156,000 followers, even though she only started posting in August with this first clip.
Hey, this is Kay coming from Los with prison news with the days are as dark as black coffee. So I want to go ahead and answer some questions. I am in prison in Florida. This is a 30-second recorded video. It costs $2 to send. My family is posting for me.
Her mother, Kathy Moyer, shares the recorded messages on TikTok using the handle K_live news. They've received more than 5 million views.
This is bigger than I imagined. You know, they're worried about something. That's what I thought at first. They're worried about something.
A single mother of 4, Kay was sentenced to 3 years for trafficking drugs. She began serving her sentence at Lowell in January while pregnant with her 5th child.
Some of the guards have said stuff to her, TikTok queen, or they say the day is as dark as black coffee.
Kay uses her video posts to report on conditions inside the prison.
We're being turned into animals. We're a warehouse. They are bringing out the worst side of it.
She's there. She sees it, you know, and she's like a righteous kind of person. If somebody's doing something, she's going to speak up.
Kay has reported on poor COVID protocols.
We have no way to social distance. We have no access to medicine. So please just keep us in your prayers.
Drug abuse.
I was just informed that a woman was taken to the hospital unresponsive due to a drug overdose.
And inmate assaults.
This last weekend, a woman was brutally attacked by another inmate. The victim was riddled in multiple bite marks all over her body, and a large bottom section of her ear was completely bitten off.
The people that have been in there since they were, 17, 20, 25, and now they're 40, 50, they're angry because they haven't been taught how to grow up and mature.
She's also talked about how elderly disabled inmates struggle at Lowell.
There's a 9-year-old woman. There's a woman that is completely blind. There is a woman with dementia who thinks she's in Germany and doesn't speak English. And they're in there helpless.
Her most personal post describes losing her own baby after a high-risk pregnancy. Kay's baby, who she named Raven, was diagnosed in the womb with anencephaly, a condition that leads to early death. But she says her daughter was given little chance of survival because she wasn't provided with supplemental nutrition, vitamins, and other prenatal care in prison.
Just an hour after my baby was born, she died in my arms. We may not be able to change what I suffered, but hopefully what I'm about to tell you will change things for others.
In September, her mother got this letter from the prison telling her that posting the videos violated Florida DOC policy.
You know, I'm not saying that DeSantis knows about it, but it's on his letterhead.
The letter ordered her to stop posting videos or face a suspension of visiting privileges. Kay also said she was threatened in this post.
So administration has just threatened me with confinement for speaking out to the public and government officials about what's really going on here. But I'm not going to stop, and you deserve to know.
She told me before that when she got in trouble, she said it would be worth it. She said I could do 6 months in lock if there was actual change.
We contacted the Department of Corrections. A spokesperson said in an email it is a violation to record during video visits under Florida's administrative code. But the statement said inmates' First Amendment rights may be exercised through their ability to regularly communicate with legal representatives, family, friends, etc., through an array of established and easily accessible methods. Recently, Keiko was granted a request to transfer to another prison closer to her mother's home.
People need to know. This place cannot keep running like this.
This was 5 years ago.
Anisha Muncie, E02057, aka Tattoo. Now we Joanna McPhellamy, U46922. Bring it over here. Solid, Beth, U15134. Yay!
My name is Deborah Bennett, and I'm a former inmate at Lowell Correctional Institution. We did a silent protest today to try to stop the abuse that's happening inside these prisons, where these women and men are being beaten. Somebody was just beaten 2 weeks ago, and they're quadriplegic now. And it's got to change.
Okay, so I have sat here for an hour and a half, and I've read through a ton of this stuff, and at one point I thought I was recording, and I wasn't. I was on mute. Imagine that. Imagine that, you guys. I want to discuss what these findings were at Sarah's new home. The SA over there was so bad by the prison guards, the government had to get involved, and they went over and did a complete investigation. It looks like this investigation lasted over a year. It included them making 2 whole visits there. It also included them going through many documents. They went through every single complaint filed by an inmate. It looks like this was truly. I mean, well, if this is okay, let me put it to you this way. This is dated. I take what I just said back. This was dated December the 22nd of 2022 was when the report was published. They started working on it in August of 2018. That was their first visit there to the site. They went in August of 2018 to visit the facility and do like an investigation. Then they went back in November of 2019 and revisited things. I'm going to try to go over this as quickly as I can because I can't believe I wasn't recording all that. This report right here goes through stuff that I can't even say on YouTube. That's why it's just kind of hard to read some of this stuff to you guys. What it boils down to is that there were multiple prison guards that were doing things they weren't supposed to be doing. They were overstepping their boundaries with the inmates. These majority of them were male, but they actually did find one female that had overstepped with a prisoner that was actually underage when she got in there. So they found out that this prison guard had had a relationship with this younger inmate. That means not an adult, and it was still ongoing when she became an adult. That prison guard was fired. But some of the stuff that the men have done and said to the women is absolutely awful. Another thing that this report brings up is the fact that this prison facility is highly understaffed, like 15% or more. The FDOC Secretary Mark S. Inge took office in January of 2019, becoming the 7th secretary since 2006. FDOC includes the OIG, which is responsible for investigating criminal and administrative violations, as well as audits to detect fraud, waste, and abuse. That's who oversees the prison, right? The operationally independent OIG falls under the administrative umbrella of the FDOC and is funded by the FDOC. Remember that as we go through this. Oh, down here in the notes, it says that the work camp is 14 acres and it is not part of our investigation. Oh, the youthful offender programs include inmates under 18 and up to age 24. Closed management is considered the confinement of an inmate apart from the general population for reasons of security or the order and effective management of the institution where the inmate, through his or her behavior, has demonstrated an inability to live in the general population without the abusing the rights and the privileges of others. Okay, so she's probably not in that because she knows how to play the game. But she still pisses everybody off. Okay, so in late June of 2022, Inspector General Lester Fernandez resigned reportedly under pressure from the FDOC leadership after voicing concerns about FDOC's support of OIG's investigative mandate. This starts out summarizing basically that Lowell is violating the prisoners' constitutional rights, their Eighth Amendment, because they're not safe. They're being violated by the people that are supposed to be protecting them, which is the staff. In addition to that, they're being blackmailed because the ones that report things get treated differently. They're sent to confinement, as I said earlier. Okay, remember this, that in 2003, Congress enacted the Prison, the big R word, Elimination Act. It's called PREA. It's to combat SA in correctional settings. So remember that because this is going to come up down in here. Basically, after doing this report, they found that Lowell was just in huge, I mean, it was bad. One of the things that was really bad was that in this report, they've gone through and they're making suggestions on what they can do to better this, right? They considered that under the PREA Act, it also includes, in addition to SA, it also includes voyeurism, staff exhibitionism, and mere requests by staff to engage in the wrong kind of conduct with the prisoner. They find that the officers and staff is severe and prevalent throughout the prison. Basically, what they did was they called it out. It's just like going from the top down. This is something that continues to happen. It's repetitive, it's ongoing, and it's been accepted for way too long. In the course of our investigation, the department and its experts reviewed 100% of the investigation files produced by the FDOC of reports of SA and harassment of the prisoners over several years, including 161 investigations of staff on prisoner allegations from 2015 through 2019. Let me just stop there for a moment and make a note. This stuff has been going on, like they've been complaining about this in the media at least since 2005, I know of. Probably earlier than that. Can you imagine how long all of this has been? And I guess it's one of those things that's been going on for so long that now they're saying, well, it took a long time to start it. Now we got to take a long time to fix it. That's not what the government is saying to them. They're like, no, you're going to fix this and you have so many days to fix it. Of the 161 misconduct investigations and complaints of our experts reviewed, 8 were closed by arrest of the officer. In 161, only 8 were closed by the arrest of the officer. In several cases, officers resigned in lieu of separation for cause or resigned while under investigation for misconduct. More than 24 more officers were dismissed due to agency policy or for committing felony or misdemeanor perjury or making false statements. Dozens more contain detailed, credible allegations of SA. In total, we identified a sufficient number of incidents of SA to provide compelling evidence in support of our conclusion that there is reasonable cause to believe there is a pattern and practice of SA at Lowell. This pattern and practice conclusion is bolstered by evidence of pervasive, harassment. Here's some of the incidents that they outline. Some staff abuse prisoners through unwanted and coerced contact, the wrong kind of contact, including groping and beyond that. Prisoners were forced or coerced to perform fellatio on or touch the intimate body parts of staff. In other instances, staff demanded that the prisoners undress in front of them, sometimes in exchange for basic necessities such as toilet paper. Many prisoners reported that staff watched them while they shower or use the toilet, with no justification. Lowell has a long history of tolerance for SA and harassment, which continues to be present. So they said that in the interviews, the department prisoners spoke of a lot of intimacy between the staff and prisoners is a regular event, suggesting a normalization of the SA by the staff. And there were even some staff members that spoke against it, that they saw it was ongoing. So between 2015 and 2018, 15 Lowell officers were dismissed for violating agency policy and 10 for committing a felony or misdemeanor involving perjury or a false statement. In these cases, FDOC has closed its investigation on the basis of a policy violation or false statement, rather than following through with the underlying allegations to determine their basis and accuracy and whether SA was a predicate offense. These dismissals thus suggest that the FDOC may knowingly be avoiding making findings of SA in some cases. Now, they've talked about some officers have faced criminal charges. I'm not going to get into all this. This is pretty lengthy, actually. There was one main aggressor who seemed to be pretty high up on the chain. He was like the sergeant. He was like the worst one. And he was reported on a lot, but they never did anything about it. And guys, there's no way that this stuff didn't go back to the warden. There's just no way. They found that there were several, in May of 2017, at least 18 officers and other staff faced discipline for the PREA-related violations. Then they went through and talked about how severe the staffing shortages are at Lowell, which is crazy, you guys. I mean, there's there's 3 different levels. And it says that level 1 positions the most essential. Internal reviews have repeatedly concluded that unless posts at all levels are filled according to the staffing plan, supervision and monitoring are inadequate to prevent, detect, and respond to SA and harassment allegations. In spite of this mandate to ensure that all posts are filled, the actual deployment of staff at Lowell consistently fails to meet adequate staffing levels. So it says they were short of staff by 15%. Okay, this is what is so weird to me. On February the 14th of 2018, 41% of security staff scheduled to work were either on leave, out for training, or on special assignment, with only 59% recorded as working their assigned security post. So approximately only 65% of the security staff was actually on the job. So that's part of the problem. I mean, you heard what that other guy said. He didn't want to work there because he didn't want to be around it all. I can imagine that anybody that tries to come in and make change or do the right thing gets put in a certain category and is probably not treated very well. In addition to inadequate numbers of staff, Lowell also fails to adequately rotate staff housing unit assignments. The Lowell warden told us that this lack of rotation leads staff to become over-familiar with the prisoners they supervise, an observation shared by an OIG supervisor. Despite the acknowledgement of this risk, Lowell has not changed its staff assignment practices. Yeah, that would make sense. You move them around, you know? Let's hope Sarah Boone doesn't try to make a jailbreak. It doesn't seem like that's the problem, though. Okay, here it talks about the department's visit. And it also talks about the surveillance camera coverage throughout the facility is inadequate to protect prisoners from unreasonable risk of harm from SA and among other things. Now, I do know that they have added the body cam. As of July 1st of 2024, they're on a pilot program. I love how all these facilities like to have these pilot programs. It's temporary, but it was created within the department for 3 years. The purpose of the pilot program is to ensure safety and provide accountability for inmates and staff within the institution. So it's basically just that the prison guards are required to wear body cam and have the audio on. It records audio and video data of the officer's person-related encounters and activities. Okay, is it on 24/7? It says that each correctional officer working there will wear a body cam while acting within the scope of his or her official duties. But then it says the department shall establish policies and procedures addressing the proper use, maintenance, and storage of these body cameras and of the data recorded by such cams. The bad thing is, you guys, is that even though they're doing all this stuff, there's still ways. There's so many people that are corrupt in all this. There's ways they can still get around stuff. Now, there's a provision that allows a correctional officer using a body camera to review the recorded footage from the body camera upon his or her own initiative or request before writing a report or providing a statement regarding any event arising within the scope of his or her official duties. Any such provision may not only apply to an officer's inherent duty to immediately disclose information necessary to secure an active crime scene or to identify suspects, and witnesses. I can't believe they didn't already have these. Then they're saying that they, beginning June 30th of 2025, so this summer, and annually thereafter, the department shall submit a report to the governor, the president of the Senate, the minority leader of the Senate, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, and the minority leader of the House of Representatives on the operation of the program during the previous year. The report must, at a minimum, include findings based upon the review of incidents at the Lowell Correctional Institute and the effectiveness of the body cameras worn by the officers, proposal on changes to existing policies and procedures, and any other information that the department deems important in furthering the purpose of the pilot program. I mean, that's a good first start, I would think, but can you imagine us being able to get footage of Sarah interacting with the officers? But you know what? She's so flirty, she could get herself into some major trouble. Now, it also says that the configuration of the housing units at Lowell further contributes to an environment where there is an unacceptable risk of harm from SA because women prisoners are vulnerable to impermissible cross-gender viewing for reasons unrelated to security. In many of the housing units in the main and the annex, including the youthful inmate dormitory, male staff can view the female prisoners while they are showering and using the toilet. The officer station is elevated and situated between the two sides of the unit. The male staff in the officer stations have clear visibility into the bathroom and can view the first rows of toilets. Many showers have saloon-style swinging double doors with a gap in the middle, so the women are exposed while showering. Now, they did notice that on one of these that there was a mirror. You guys know those big round mirrors that go up in the corner? I think that's what they're talking about. The mirror was positioned so that they could actually see into an area of the showers where they weren't supposed to see. So they had them fix that. But they made a comment here like, we shouldn't have to bring this stuff up. This should already be done. Attempts to mitigate privacy violations have been insufficient. They put up a frosted film on one of the windows of the dorms such that the individuals entering the dorm from the outside could not observe the bathroom and the shower area. But still, male staff can see into these areas from the officer station in part because anyone who is taller than the average height can easily see over the frosted portion of the window. So it just seems like there's just zero respect for privacy there. This is where they claim voyeurism is coming into play, and they again bring up the PREA Act. They also said that the staff lacked clarity on the proper protocol of male officers to announce themselves when they enter an area. A few officers said, well, I announced myself at the beginning of the shift. I thought that's all I had to do. Whereas most of the officers said, no, clearly we announce ourselves whenever we enter the area of the bathroom or somewhere like that where they could require some privacy. Which, I could see them not doing it all the time just because if they want to catch somebody in the act on something, they can. Prisoner SA victims who face adverse consequences for reporting the SA are much less likely to report the abuse. So they identified the fact that they were putting these prisoners in what they called they punished the prisoners. And many had fear of retaliation for making allegations against the staff. They send them to confinement, and the confinement is only supposed to be 72 hours, but they were sending them there for a week at a time. The same sergeant who had allegations made against him indicated that prisoners do not get visitation when placed in administrative confinement. And he said, most definitely they are placed in handcuffs and taken to confinement after reporting abuse. They're like, it's for their own safety. So what they stated here is that it appears that the officer in charge makes the initial determination that there is no available means of separation from likely abusers. FTOC's current PREA policy, which became effective July 31st of 2018, represents a significant improvement over the prior version from 2016, which permitted automatic placement of reporting victims in administrative confinement of an incident. 2016 PREA policy permitted this placement to continue for up to 72 hours before the facility was required to review the placement alternative options and the prisoner's housing preference. So what they were doing is, instead of treating the prisoner like they were a victim in the instance, it was like they were punishing them. And they would take way too long to review these things. Some of these things were still left open months on end. None of these were reported. There was a bunch of them that were found to be, they would file them and say they were found, how did they say it? There's no findings of abuse in this one or that one. And then they would just close them out. And you'd see there was a repetition of the same people involved every time as far as the staff goes. In 2019, a senior corrections supervisor informed us that prisoners are always sent to get segregation if they report a PREA-related allegation involving a staff member, even if the inmate says she does not want to go. There's also claims in here, which I haven't gotten to it yet, but here it is right here. During our August of 2018 tour, we learned that a sergeant, who was the subject of a long list of PREA-related allegations, had warned prisoners in Dormitory A not to speak with the department attorneys and investigators who were visiting Lowell. Specifically, several prisoners reported that the sergeant warned the prisoners to, in quote, be careful what you say because you may end up under investigation, end quote. In this specific case, the warden took the usual measure of writing a letter to the sergeant indicating that his permanent reassignment to a different FDOC facility was in the best interest of Lowell. And the sergeant voluntarily resigned from FDOC in April of 2019. He voluntarily resigned. And it also says that during November of 2019 tour, over a year later, a prisoner approached the department's team and stated that a sergeant who also was the subject of several PREA-related allegations over a number of years was repeatedly harassing her, but she was afraid to report it because she was going to be getting a visit from her son and she did not want that to be taken away. So a lot of times they will hold that against a lot of the mom prisoners. The following day, we learned that reporting prisoner had been placed in administrative confinement. The prisoner's mother had called the shift supervisor that night, stating she feared for her daughter's life because the sergeant made threats against her daughter when he found out her daughter talked to the department personnel. This same sergeant was reported by several prisoners to have said to prisoners during the morning count that, quote, you can keep telling DOJ your lies. It doesn't matter how much trouble I get in. I can retire and lay at home, end quote. The team relayed this information to the warden, who then released the prisoner from administrative confinement and transferred the sergeant to a different FDOC facility. While the department's team was able to speak with a number of prisoners while on site, dozens of others declined to be interviewed, expressing fear of being seen cooperating with our investigators. And many of the prisoners with whom we spoke similarly indicated that they were fearful that they would be retaliated against. So this 34-page letter is just on that one issue, that doesn't have to do with any other kind of things that's going on in there. It said investigative delays long have been a problem. In late 2015, a previous FDOC Inspector General departed under a cloud of criticism that his office delayed or thwarted investigations of suspicious deaths and complaints of abuse. In April of 2016, the state announced the appointment of a new Inspector General, who in return left the position in 2020 and has been replaced by an interim Inspector General. Despite these changes in top personnel into the complaint review process, serious delays persist as described herein. I mean, it is kind of crazy how the higher-ups in this facility, I don't know about other facilities, and I don't know if it's norm, but it's like a rotating door with the warden up there and the people around him, I guess. I don't know. So they had a lot of bad record keeping. They found a bunch of stuff missing. Many times there was errors on the reports. There was just stuff that would prevent. It hindered the FDOC's ability to prevent and respond to the different accusations. One consistent problem is that the FDOC fails to track terminations of officers who were dismissed or resigned while under investigation for SA. Our expert identified reports on dismissals that contained significant inaccuracies. For example, a spreadsheet documenting employee terminations and dismissals from July of 2015 through June of 2018 did not include an officer who other records confirm was dismissed for cause related to misconduct allegations and other misconduct in 2016. So it's like they were just hiding stuff in the paperwork. They were, what do they call that? They were doing the books. This is bad. I didn't realize I was going to get into this when I went into looking into this prison, but so they're supposed to have so many days that they act on these types of things, and they're supposed to have so many steps that they take when they're not doing any of it. They're all backing each other up. I would bet at least 80% of them are dirty. And another thing they were doing was holding on to the paperwork for a long time and not turning it in. The prisoners have a right to the PREA guide, and they have a right to be able to contact someone if they feel like they're being mistreated. And they found that Lowell Prison did not give them the proper access to this type of stuff and the proper information regarding this kind of stuff. They were reporting things to the tip line, and that's another thing that's so bad. Even when they were reporting things through this tip line, nothing had been done by the facility in a month's time. On January the 10th of 2019, an assistant warden acknowledged in an email to the warden at the time and another assistant warden that Lowell's facility corrective action plan showed that Lowell doubled in the number of PREA allegations from the previous year. The assistant warden further stated, "I did my best to make the increase in PREA cases sound like not such a bad thing." In November of 2019, the department asked the former warden, current warden, and an OIG supervisor what steps had been taken to address the increase in PREA allegations from 2018. No one could speak of any steps that had been taken to address the issue since the report came out in 2018. Oh, it's bad, you guys. It's bad. So anyway, they basically said, look, we look forward to working cooperatively with the state of Florida to ensure that these violations are remedied. We are obligated to advise you that 49 days after issuance of this letter, the Attorney General may initiate a lawsuit pursuant to the CRIPA to correct deficiencies identified in this letter if state officials have not satisfactorily addressed our concerns. Okay, lastly, I want to show you guys a little bit here about what's on Wiki with the notable inmates that are in this same prison that Miss Sarah Boone is going to be in. I thought this was really interesting. And actually looking through this list, it makes me want to do a whole documentary on a couple of these people individually because I can't remember. Some of them I can remember and some of them I vaguely remember. Okay, Dahlia DiPolito. You guys remember her. She's the one they reminded me like Jersey Shore, this couple. This happened in Miami. She was the one that went to hire somebody a hitman, and she ended up being hired. She hired an undercover cop, and the body cam was all over the place on this one. And her boyfriend was very vocal about the whole thing. And she was trying to say that her boyfriend and her had set it up for a reality show or something. Do you guys remember that case? Anyway, she's serving 16 years for soliciting the unaliving of her husband, Michael DiPolito. I can't remember when she went in. I'm not sure. Amelia Carr, she is serving life without the possibility of parole for the unaliving of Heather Strong. And it says that, she kidnapped and unalived Heather Strong in Marion County, Florida. She was a rival for the affections of a man Strong was married to, and she came under suspicion. She denied any guilt and alleged that her statements were coerced. She was found guilty. Rachel Wade is serving 27 years. Yes, I remember this one. This is the one where these two little girls were fighting over this stupid little thug. And he ate it up. This happened out of Pinellas County. She was convicted of unaliving in the second degree in 2009 of Sarah Ludman in Pinellas County, or Pinellas Park, Florida. You've got Courtney Schulhoff, who's serving 40 years for the unaliving of her own father. She was 16 years old at the time of it. I want to do some of these documentaries. You've got Jennifer Christine Fitcher. She's an American former teacher who was convicted in Polk County, Florida for
like a brothel.
battery
It's
against
like
three
a
17-year-old male students. She was sentenced to 22 years imprisonment. She was one of those. She's a teacher taking advantage of her students. Do you guys remember Julie Schenecker? She unalived her children, 13-year-old Bo and 16-year-old Kaylee. I think it's Kaylee. It says Kaylee. It's Calyx, but I think it's Kaylee is how they pronounce it. Kaylee. This was a horrible, horrible case. I remember it well. It happened in 2011. It was in Tampa, Florida, if I haven't already said that. She did confess to it, but this woman has lost her mind since then. I don't know if she had already lost her. Maybe she did. Maybe that's what caused her to do it. This woman is mentally ill. Very, very mentally ill. This one was a case that was just sad all the way around. The poor father, I mean, it was a mess. It's been a long time since I've looked at that one, though. I wouldn't mind looking at that one. I've never done a video on it. You've got a lady by the name of Amanda Lewis who's in there for the unaliving of her own daughter. She drowned her in the family's pool in 2017. You've got Jennifer Mee, who is known as the Hiccup Girl. She's serving life without parole. Do you guys remember her? She was part of, I didn't realize she got life without parole. She was a part of a case where somebody was unalived. But I thought she wasn't, for some reason I thought she was like, she lured somebody to somewhere and then they ended up unaliving him. But I didn't realize she had gotten life for that. Tammy Sitch is a WWE Hall of Famer. She's serving 17 years for a DUI and manslaughter-related charges in that DUI. You've got Ashley MacArthur, who's serving a life sentence for the first-degree unaliving of her friend, private investigator, and former police officer Taylor Wright. Did that one just come up? Did that one just happen? Yes, I think so. I think that one just happened. If it's the one I'm thinking of. I don't have any images here. Neoshka Bello, she unalived her 2-year-old daughter. Doris Dee Moore, she unalived the lotto winner Abraham Shakespeare. I remember that case. It was very, very, they did a lot. There was a lot of media on that one in the area where I live. Abraham had won a $30 million lottery jackpot in Florida, receiving $17 million in 2006, and in 2009 his family declared him missing, and in January of 2010 his body was found buried under a concrete slab in the backyard of an acquaintance. Dee Dee. Why is there so many bad stories about people that win the lottery? Have y'all noticed that? Tiffany Ann Cole, she was convicted of unaliving and found guilty for the kidnapping and first-degree unaliving of a Duval County, Florida husband and wife team and she was sentenced to death also. Ooh. Also found guilty in a case where 3 men, it was her boyfriend was one of them. Probably drugs. Jennifer Gomez was a cat burglar. She served close to 10 years for burglary over 200 homes, netting $7 million. Catherine Katie Magbanua, life in prison for the organization of the murder of the FSU professor Dan Markel. But wait a minute. When I say Dan Markel, you know who that's not the same one as the Adelsons, is it? That's a different, is that a different? My gosh, they're all running together for me. And you guys also, these are, this list that I'm giving you is notable inmates. And Sarah has made the list at the bottom since she's just gotten in there. The inmates on death row there are Margaret Allen. She was sentenced to unaliving for torturing and unaliving her housekeeper, Wendy Wright. Tina Lasagna Brown. She was sentenced to unaliving for torturing and unaliving 19-year-old Adriana Zimmerman. Okay, I think that's all for now. I apologize that I went into a lot more than I thought I was going to. I did not mean to do that. If you want more out of this or you have questions, put them in the comment and I'll do my best to answer. I'm going to dive into some of these cases. This kind of piqued my interest, so I'll get back to you guys and let you know what I find out. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please do not forget to like and subscribe on your way out, and feel free to leave a comment. Have a blessed day.